In the words of MP Chloe Swarbrick and many others of her generation, okay, boomer, those immortal words, using them to welcome John Cowan to the program. John, kia ora. Okay, boomer.
Kia ora. Yep. Look, I just want to say guilty as charged. I accept this ageism as being deserved.
Well, I mean, you technically are a boomer. I mean, it's not your fault
I'm
necessarily.
right in the middle of it.
Yeah, I mean, that's just that was an accident of the generation you were born into. You didn't choose that for yourself, did you?
No. If I did, I've forgotten how I did it. And look, I'm born square in the middle of the boomer demographics.
Okay.
And on Sunday night, I had the privilege of talking with economics wunderkind Brad Olson, who is, look, just you give his CV a good hard shake, you'd just be amazed at the achievements and things that have fallen out of that.
And annoyingly, he's younger than some of our children.
I have shirts that are older than Brad Olson, and at 26, he's already the CEO of Infometrics and he's got awards, and he's on telly all the time. He's doing fantastically well, and good on him. He's a nice bloke too.
Yeah.
But in the interview, I just for a bit of levity, and I said to him, are baby boomers really the villains, sitting on all the resources and blocking the opportunities for Gen Z and the millennials? And I was expecting him to go, no, not at all. If my generation just worked a bit harder and stopped eating avocado toast and traveling to Bali every other year, they could be doing much better. But instead, he was quite gentle, but he said, well, no one can choose when they're born.
Oh, yeah.
So basically, he was saying, yes. And so I've spent this morning actually going through and looking at some facts and figures, and he is right. If you go onto YouTube and sort of search out boomer economics, you'll see that there is a bubble that has happened in our society, and it was largely due to the fact that we were a big bunch coming through after the war. Suddenly there was this huge spike in population, which for me personally meant that it was actually quite tough. At school, all our classes were 40 or more kids. The systems were just stretched to handle this huge bunch of kids coming through, and mortgage rates, when just after I married, they peaked at around about 20%.
Wow.
And they said that 48% of householders' income was going into paying their
John, can I just stop you there for a second, because you are starting to sound a little bit like back in my day. You don't know how lucky you are. I mean, you're really channeling this boomer thing quite well, actually.
What I am doing is I am mounting the classic defense that boomers put forward when they criticized, look, we worked for every dollar that we owned and it was tough, and you say that we had free education. Yes, but only about 12% of people could afford to go to university back then. And look, it's all true, but it was tough for us, but statistically now we are doing very well. And as well as that, we're sitting on this pile of wealth and housing, and it's not doing a lot of favors for the young people coming through. The latest group of young people are the first cohort that aren't doing better than the cohort ahead of them. They're living in harder circumstances. And typically, statistically, older people are living with more and more space in their houses that they own, and younger people are living with less and less space in rental property, and the opportunities to get into housing is just shrinking and shrinking. And and again, I can hear my boomer colleagues going, yes, our pensions, we paid for every dollar of that with the taxes we paid. In actual fact, my generation have drawn down more in welfare costs than we ever put in.
Wow.
And in
that
fact,
will come as a shock to some people.
It does. It's not as if our taxes that we're paying, and we've paid our taxes, of course, they weren't being put in some piggy bank to give back to us when we got a bit older. No, we're going to have to rely on this young generation, a small generation of young people too, because of course fertility rates have dropped, and they're going to have to pay for us as we go on living, because we're also inconveniently not dropping dead. and releasing all that wealth back to them. That's another
Terrible,
thing.
terrible boomers. Something else to be feeling guilty about is not being dead, John. Look at that.
I eventually will get over that and conveniently drop dead. But, our wealth does impact young people. For instance, the wisdom we've always given our kids is, study hard, get a good university education, then you can go after the higher paying jobs. Well, yes, a lot of them are doing that. More of them are doing that. But it means that they usually have to move to certain areas to earn those higher incomes. Certain cities and things have got better opportunities for higher wages. But when they get there, the rents are so high that they're actually no better off. They're no better off for having got a better education and gone for those higher jobs in that higher paying area.
Also, John, of course, they've got a massive student debt that you wouldn't have had in your day, so they're probably a lot worse off than you and I. And look, I'm waist deep in guilt and almost drowning. John, give us some hope in this. What can older people actually do? We didn't choose to be born into this generation. Can we offer some hope to people in younger generations?
Well, yeah. Look, let me say, like Brad Olson said, we didn't choose to be born then, and also we have worked hard, we have saved hard, we deserve everything that we've got, perhaps. But the thing is, we shouldn't become so defensive when young people accuse us of sitting on the housing, sitting on the property, and making things tough for them.
Yeah.
I think we should at least go, what can we do about this?
Yeah.
How can we help? What would be some good solutions? Like, we're looking at people like Brad Olson in his mid-20s coming up with all sorts of brilliant advice. So we should be listening to our young people. I think to a certain extent, my generation should stop giving advice about education and how to study for jobs and how to work hard.
You realise, ironically, this is you giving advice about you not giving advice.
Yeah, don't listen to me. Don't listen to me. We should be listening, and that'd be my last bit of advice. But also, I think we should become advocates for our young people. One of the things that my generation are very good at doing is voting.
Yep.
And for every, we outnumber the young people, and we also tend to be more motivated in voting, and we vote in policies that suit us.
Yep.
We vote in policies that don't touch our wealth, that we don't vote in policies that give discounts to older people. Instead, we should be looking around to thinking, how can we advocate for young people in our systems, in our taxation policies, just in our politics?
Don't be like the French in this regard. Wasn't it they thought about increasing the retirement age to 63, and there was rioting in the streets that made Bastille look like a picnic?
Oh, look, that's just the French national hobby, isn't it?
Let's blame the French. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I don't understand their particular issues, but honestly, if you tried to touch the welfare arrangements around older people in New Zealand, you would see, that they'd be mobilising their walking frames and.
Exactly.
Hey, we're expecting these young people to look after us in our old age.
Yep.
There's going to be a huge tax burden on them. It's interesting. I was reading that most of the health budget is actually spent in the last year of a person's life.
Wow.
Now, you don't know it's your last year, but when these expensive operations and hospital stays and things like that.
That's a sign that it might be, right?
Yeah, that's a sign. And we're expecting these young people to keep on paying for our pensions and our health bills and things like that. If that's the case, we should be thinking about how can we look after them now.
Yeah.
And we've got the assets, we've got the wealth tucked away somewhere. Of course, we're going to be looking after our own security, but I think we should just be thinking about, we should be honoring that contract we have with our younger generation. And so, yeah, that's the thoughts. I haven't thought through this. I need to go back to Brad, I guess, and ask him a bit more about what we could do to creatively help younger people coming up. But I just think, first of all, drop the defensiveness.
Yeah.
When people go, okay, boomer, you could nod and say, yeah, guilty as charged.
Yeah, no, very good advice indeed. And hey, not that we are taking your advice, because you're a boomer, of course, but your advice to not take your advice, but to listen to others. John, always a pleasure. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Cheers.